Hey, good morning. So, Grace Fortune, who you have probably met if you've been tuning into my lives for a while, is joining me today. You can see her beautiful face over here. Um, and Grace is a course strategist. And so, part of that means that she has been integral to me developing Whomp Whomp to Wow, like over the last 2 years. So, when I was talking about this, I was like, oh, I'm going to do a launch debrief, and I was like, I should bring Grace into this. So this is uh, basically, Grace, you're going to ask me questions. I'm going to answer the questions. And so the way I'm talking about this is it's a launch debrief, but it gives everyone who's watching a behind the scenes tour of what a launch can look like, um, what worked, what didn't work, and maybe it's inspiration, maybe we're not giving you a blueprint by any means, but you can walk away with possibly a blueprint to your next launch. So I'm going to turn things over to Grace and stop talking.
Oh, Erin, you're so funny. Thank you for having me and inviting me on. This was super spontaneous, but you know how I am. I do enjoy some spontaneity when I can do so.
Oh
So
yeah, I messaged her like 20 minutes ago, by the way. I was like, hey, you want to do this with me? So
yeah, we were originally going to try for tomorrow, but yeah, unfortunately our schedules weren't lining up. So we're like, let's just do it now. Anywho, I'm really excited to get started because I love all things launch, as you well know. So I'm gonna, like you said, Erin, we're gonna kind of do this kind of Q&A style. So feel free to answer as you see fit, and then we'll just kind of go through it. So one of the most important things that you can possibly do at the start of your launch is identify who your target audience is and figure out like what is this for, the why behind it. So what, Erin, what was your target audience for Womp Womp to Wow?
So I think we can talk about a couple of things here.
Mm-hmm.
And the first is that when I first launched this was an kind of an entry level way to work with me. People who wanted to write their own website copy, but just like weren't ready to pull the trigger on hiring a copywriter. What ended up happening is that as through subsequent launches, we learned that it was really best for people who have some knowledge of conversion, some knowledge of website copy, some knowledge of maybe not even website copy, but copywriting in general. So you understand some of the basic principles, because it's not an entry level class course by any means. It is part accountability. Anyway, so let's go into who it's for. It is primarily for copywriters, freelance writers of really any bent, people who specialize in getting the message out or telling the story, but just struggle to do it for themselves. It is also really good for coaches, consultants, and marketing strategists, to include website designers and graphic designers. And that is like this laundry list of people who it's for. But here's the commonality: it's for people who specialize in solving other people's marketing problems, understand the basic flow of marketing, understand the basics of copywriting, but when it comes to shining the light in themselves, really struggle to do it for themselves. Um, so that's really the who.
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful way to identify your audience is figuring out it's not just a specific industry. It's a commonality of the kind of people that they serve and the problems that they solve. And for me, like I'm also a copywriter, so even though I know how to write copy, specifically for launches, I was in the program as well, and I'm doing it again because I'm refreshing my web copy. I found that just because I knew how to write copy doesn't mean I know how to write a website. Um, it was your course was integral in me writing my current iteration of my website, and I just didn't know, okay, what should go where, how should this appear in the final product. And Womp Womp to Wow personally gave me the structure that I needed to get the words out and get them live, even though I didn't necessarily know how to do it beforehand, right? And I'm not saying this just to like plug the program, even though I think it's awesome, but that's really what it's for. You pretty much have to know how to write, just maybe not necessarily how to structure out a website as a project. So, and what was the launch window for Womp Womp to Wow this time?
Um,
Like the cart open and close?
yeah, so cart open was March. Well, okay, so here's where it gets tricky because it was staggered. So for public, it was February 22nd to March 1. It opened a couple days early for the wait list and then for the training, people who joined my training.
Mhm.
But I think there's also some value if we can go back and cover like the what of it. What is Whomp Whomp to Wow really? For those of you who have been hanging on my every word for the last forever, you may already know. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, Whomp Whomp to Wow is a 28-day website copy course. And so you've understood that it was for website copy, but it is designed to help you onboard yourself as a client, home about or write your home about and services pages, and do it quickly. There's more time built in. We actually have our intro call tomorrow. Doors did close last week. So anyway, like not to get into too much detail, but that's kind of the what of it. So you can stop apologizing for your website. So the when was basically the 10 days over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, awesome. And where were you promoting it?
Everywhere. So I mean, it was on social. It was an email. It was on my website. It was a big banner on there, as well as the sales page. It was in conversations. Where else am I forgetting? But TikTok, like pretty much everywhere you can show up, I did show up, and did so strategically. Different parts of the launch were promoted differently. I used LinkedIn on the launch for the training because it's really a great place to focus it. I did also promote that other places. I didn't use LinkedIn as much for the course launch itself, for the course, the launch copy, just because I think of the kind of content that people want to see on LinkedIn. It's not a bunch of sales copy.
Right.
So I pushed back on that.
Excellent. So, I mean, one of the biggest questions is, so why did you decide to launch Whomp Whomp to Wow in the first place? Like, what was the inspiration behind it?
Initially, like I said earlier, I wanted to give people kind of an entry-level way to work with me. But what it has evolved into is I love seeing the light turn on in your eyes when you get a big aha moment. I love being able to help people who probably have the majority of their website copy written in a document, like particularly after going through the course, but on those hot seat calls being like, no, I think we need to shift this. You've buried the best copy way down below, and it really should be your headline. Let's move it up. That's really fun for me. It's really fun to kind of help move things around, shuffle, shift, all the things, and turn it into something that's really helpful. And the flip side is I love seeing people say things like, I sort of knew what I was doing. I got intense clarity. I changed like a couple of things in the way I was marketing myself, and people started calling me immediately. They started booking calls, or now I feel confident that I can share this. Because I don't know, it's this weird psychological thing. Like if you feel like you're not going to fail, of course you're going to do the things that will make you succeed.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm going to pick up the phone to make these calls if I'm pretty sure that they're going to buy. Of course, why wouldn't I? Or so it's like you start to have those conversations. You start to send people back to your website, and that's really rewarding.
I like it. It's almost like just one way of helping to quiet that imposter syndrome voice that people get, right? I know, like for me specifically, I originally joined like the first iteration of Whomp Whomp because, like like you said in the headline, I kept feeling like I needed to apologize for my website because it wasn't good. I didn't want to bring anybody to it, and yeah, like Whomp Whomp is a really good solution for that. And it seems to me like you really thrive off of the transformation aspect of it. And as a marketing strategist and expert, like that makes total sense to me.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. So let's talk about what was it like for you in the lead up to the launch? Like what was the pre-launch stage like for you?
So the pre-launch stage really, it started as early back as October. When I was launching the last course, because I knew that I was only going to do this one more time in the current format and price. And we can talk more about that too in just a minute. But basically, because I knew that I had to do. I thought about stopping in October and then spending this year like in a transformative reworking whatever. And I said, no, I've told people that I'm going to run this again. I need to run it again, but then that needs to be part of the messaging moving forward. Is this is the last time I'm offering it like this.
Yeah, that was really big.
So it started planting that seed. Look, I'm only going to do this once more. After that, I don't know. And it's bittersweet, but so really I started planting the seeds in October and November, and then I started laying into it in December. But I wasn't necessarily going like coming soon, the last ever. It was not big and bold. It was just part of every conversation that I had. It was part of emails that I sent out where I referenced it. What didn't go well, I forgot to completely update my my nurture sequence.
Oh no.
So it didn't reflect that for a long time, but that's okay. Like, you know, you win and you lose some. But yeah, I would say in conversations and social posts, I didn't put anything on the website yet, but I updated the sales page and the waitlist page to be like, you know, this is the last time it's going to be offered like this.
Yeah.
Price and format. So,
and I mean, that's smart to do it that way too. And not just in like a sleazy salesy way. Like you never want to like create a false sense of exclusivity and, you know, urgency. But if legitimately like this is the last time you're doing it in this format, then you should absolutely tell people so that they can get on board. Like I'm really excited, and I'll ask you about this in a little bit. But I am curious to know, like, what are your plans for Whomp Whomp in the future? But we can get to that in a minute.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little further.
Yeah.
But the other conversations that I had in pre-launch, or rather not conversations, we're just planting some of the seeds. Hey, is this something you're struggling with? What resonates with you? What problems are you apologizing for your site? Do you believe that you have to do it yourself for whatever reason? And this unique blend of marketing people that it's for all believe that. They're like, man, I've got to do it myself. I've got to show that I can nail it. And I just don't feel legit if someone else is doing it for me. So, those are all the seeds that you're planting. And that went on into mid-January.
Okay. So it seems to me like you had a really solid understanding of what pain points and struggles that the people who should be taking Whomp Whomp to WOW have before you started launching it. Absolutely.
I would say so. Yeah. Like 5 times in, I think, you know, I've seen what moves the needle, but I've also had more conversations, and I've talked with people as they've gone through it. Because some of the things that I think they may have as pain points aren't necessarily pain points. But I let people tell me.
Yeah. And what would you say, like what worked in this in this stage of the launch, and what would you say didn't work?
There's nothing that didn't work. You know, I had all of the balls in place. I don't think that's really a good metaphor, but I had, you know, I had basically the game plan. I've done it before. I knew more or less what I had to do. There's always more you can do. And really everything that I did worked pretty much as planned. What didn't work along the way was, you know, could I have done more? Could I have gotten more visibility? Could I have done more podcasts? Should I, all the things. But the reality is I didn't do them all, and that's fine. We're a 2-person show, me and Carrie, and we have a finite number of hours in the day. And, you know, I feel like we did the best we could. And I feel like
and I think that's really important for anybody who is listening to this and is considering a launch that they want to do. I feel like there's a sense of almost needing to like win at launching and have like the most, you know, extra funnel you possibly can, like showing up everywhere, you know, sending out like 40 blast emails to your list, talking about it like 4 or 5 times a day on social media. You don't have to do it that way. It doesn't have to be that complicated or hard to have a successful launch. And I think, I mean, one question I would love to know, what was your definition of having this launch of Whomp Whomp be a success in your eyes?
I mean, that's a tough question, but you know, everyone wants to like fill every seat all the time.
Sure.
And that's always in here as a goal, but that's not the sign of success to me. The sign of success is knowing that all the pieces came together, that the timing was right, that because I mean, I've had launches that flopped, and that's okay too.
Yep.
And I think that people need to know that that's absolutely normal, and it can be a little demoralizing because you've put all this time and effort into it. But what does that look like? So I think, certainly there's some financials in there. I at least wanted to break even on the expenses that come with all the advertising fees and all of that. But I don't think there's a hard and fast number.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that having some goals that would be ideal, at least understanding, what that break even number is, and creating your definition of success before you launch is really, key to keeping your sanity when you're going through a launch. Because it is, even if you've done it many times before, there's always a chance it's going to, not work out the way you hope. There's things that can go wrong. You have to be comfortable with, like, you know what I mean? You have to be comfortable with pivoting and being thrown curveballs at any time. Like, that's just the launch life. So,
but I also think, just to add to that, and I know we need to move on, but I think you also have to be willing to, if there is a flop, and this one went very well. So I think if there is a flop, you have to be willing to kind of divorce yourself from the outcome, because it's not about you. It's never about you unless you've gotten some really bad press or something lately, and like then it is. It's about something that you said or did or whatever. But most of the time, it's not about you. It's about timing. It's about budgets. Maybe the pain points weren't right. Who knows? Who knows what it is that didn't go well? But you have to be able to, like, separate yourself, that it's not personal. And then you do a debrief, look at all the things you did, what moved the needle, what didn't work, what you'd like to do more of, just like we're doing here.
Yeah, and applying what you've learned to your next launch, I think, is absolutely pivotal. But let's move on. Let's talk about the actual runway right up before the launch. When did that start?
So runways can be, as you know, anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks long. Mine was probably closer to the 3 to 4 side. It was shorter. I was in Mexico, and then I got COVID. And so I'm just, it was like all hands on deck, push this forward. So late January, I started dropping hints about what maybe even mid-January, I started dropping hints that we're going to have a training soon. Watch for the training. I don't think I told anyone what it was until late January, which is, you don't want to go too far out on that. Right. But I started planting the seeds. Watch for the invite. Watch for the invite. Watch for the invite. And then next up was actually getting it scheduled. And so my tech stack for events is Zoom, which is where I host it. Yeah. It's Active Campaign, which is what I use to send all my emails, which that will be changing soon. I will not be using Active Campaign for a while. And I use ThriveCart, and I use ThriveCart to track registrations. Could I use an Active Campaign landing page? Could I use Zoom? Yeah, probably. But I like ThriveCart because it gives me the ability to look really carefully at where people are coming from. And I can ask the questions specifically, like, oh, hey, hey, friend, what is your problem with USPs? What's your biggest challenge around this? Because then that allows me to make sure that I'm covering those aspects during the training. And that's also a topic for another time that we can talk about. Yeah. Like a totally different broadcast. So I set that up. And then I started telling people about it. I invited people on LinkedIn. This is where LinkedIn marketing really came in heavily for me, because I could push invites out. I could message everyone that said they were going to make sure that they registered at the link to get the reminders. Yeah. So what else kind of happened there? I did that. I reviewed the sales page. I actually met with my mastermind group of other copywriters, and we went through it together. And so we made some minor tweaks. Right. I didn't get in the latest testimonials, and that's on me, but I also think that the testimonials that are on there are great. They're accurate. Looking back at my notes here, I also started sharing doors open timelines on social in emails and in conversations. And most importantly, I started sharing dates with key portions of the audience. So I shared my email list, got a heads up on the basic dates, like what's going on. And I didn't spell out specifics beyond like when doors are opening. Like I didn't spell out, but it was like, hey, we're going to have our intro call this week, which is incidentally now tomorrow. We're going to do, here's the pacing of what this is going to look like, so that people knew what to expect. It's hard to have mysteries.
Yeah.
Because mysteries make it like, well, what am I actually signing up for? When am I doing these things? What does this look like?
And what do we say about the confused buyer? They never buy anything.
Yeah. And you don't want, it's this fine line between enough information and too much.
Yeah.
So, I also sent an email to the waitlist specifically, and I said, hey, look, you get early access before anyone, and here's the day that you get it. Because I strongly feel like people need that heads up.
Yeah.
If this is something you've been thinking about, put your thinking hats on and get this early access. The waitlist got a early access and they got a bonus. The webinar people got early access too. They got to come in a day before anyone who wasn't on the wait list or on my email list. Yeah. And they got some specific content as well, which I need to go back and make sure that they actually get now. But, you know, it's, so we can go into this too. But the reason we're doing this today and not last week is that I had strep. And so that threw everything off in terms of things. So I didn't get my Slack invitations out till yesterday. There's a lot of things that didn't happen on schedule, which is what it is. So anyway, so that was what the pre-launch window looked like. And along the way, I'm posting things on social, like, yes, doors are opening, but I'm posting more of those like thought provoking, like thought provoking posts that are like, hey, what is this you? Does this sound familiar? Can you do this? You can do this.
Yeah.
Even though you believe this, you might, and that's not verbatim on any of the things, but again, it's planting those seeds early so that people are ready to buy when the doors are actually open.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one thing I would love to know that I know you've done, let's talk like for just a minute about like your affiliate system. I know that affiliate partnerships is something that you have done, you know, you've used that method quite frequently. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have, and this is candidly, this is probably the weakest area that I have in this program. And so that's something I really need to develop further. I think I have about 15 affiliates right now. Most of them are people who have either been through the course or who have been mentors to me in some shape or form throughout developing the course. And so they've seen either how it's come together, they've seen the tools, they've seen results come through from people who have done it. So I don't let just anyone affiliate it. I let people who at least have some knowledge of the outcomes, whether it's completely firsthand like you, and by the way, Grace is an affiliate, or if it's something that's like secondary, but like where they've very directly seen it. It's not third hand. There's no one in here who's promoting it without having some skin in the game. And I feel really strongly about that because I see, you know, some really big names who I'm not going to mention launching, and everyone is promoting it. And maybe they've all been through the program, but it just starts to feel really disingenuous. So that's something I feel strongly about. Now, with that soapbox over, I want to say I always give people a series of social posts, copy, and some potential graphics, and an email for the webinar, an email for the, and I hate the word webinar, but that's what it basically is, the training, and a couple of emails for the course itself to launch.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to get people more engaged. And part of it's like everyone has their own stuff going on.
Yeah.
So working another set of things in is one more task.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. I've affiliated for other people's programs. But really it's all about borrowing their audience. So how can I borrow audiences?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ways to get increase numbers with registrations or purchasing a course like that is to get involved in affiliate marketing in some way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like for you. And I love that you have people who have actually gone through the course as your primary source of affiliates, because like who's going to be better to answer questions or talk up the program than somebody who's gone through it. So no, I love that. And what would you say? So you kind of touched on this before, but was there anything else that you feel like didn't, like you could have done a little bit better or didn't work? Like you mentioned before that you wanted to have your affiliates kind of a bit more engaged, and that's something that you're working on. But was there anything else?
Really it's affiliates. I always wish I had done more, scheduled more trainings, gone live more, particularly since I have this platform to go live. But again, we're a 2-woman show, so we do as much as we can do. There's always more visibility that you can get. All in all, I'm pretty happy though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, let's move into launch week. So tell me a little bit about that. How did that go for you?
Launch week technically started like February 17th, because that's when I started dropping reminder emails like to my list. Join the event if you want, early in. Join the wait list if you want an early in. Do it all. If you don't want to, no big deal. Here's when doors officially open. Yeah. So that started Friday. Monday, the wait list got to join. They got an email. I had some serious, my biggest like tech headache came from ActiveCampaign, and we'll talk more about that if we need to. It was mostly a series of unfortunate glitches that screwed up my timing. But so that was Monday. Tuesday was the training. And so a lot of people who have reached out to me have asked, do you have to do a training to launch? And it's like, no, absolutely not. As you know, Grace, I have found that is the most effective way to launch for me, because I can promote to get people there, and then I'm having a conversation once. I'm not having it 30 times, 40 times, 50 times, however many times. And it's consistent, and it's tailored to, yes, first I want to offer value outside of it. I want people to take away value from the training no matter what. I don't want it to be like this nonstop sales show, because that's not, I don't know. I always feels icky, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I want them to have something that they can take away.
Yeah.
With that said, I lost track of my train of thought. Anyway, it allows me to focus a lot of my pre-launch energy on that. And then once I have people and they've seen it, it gives me another tool, another mechanism to talk about. So the training went extremely well. Tech didn't fail me there. There were a couple of people who had trouble accessing the webinar. I'm not sure if that was a me issue or a tech issue, but I had 30 or 45 people in there. So I feel like it was, it was successful. One day I'd love to have 150 people show up, but I'm always happy with 30 to 50. That's a solid number for me.
Yeah.
After that, doors open to them. Then Wednesday is when like the launch technically happened. That's when doors open. And I had several people in by that point. Simultaneously at this point, and I didn't mention this anywhere to you, but I'm also sending individual emails to anyone on my waitlist who didn't open the heads up email.
Oh, wow.
I'm sending individual emails to people who have expressed interest at some point. And I'm sure I didn't get everyone, but I'm doing a lot of this individually. There was something else I had in mind that I was doing that if it comes up in a minute, I'll say it. But I write all my emails, my sales emails, the day of. And this goes absolutely against any advice I ever give to people, and probably any advice that's out there. But I don't necessarily, I've got this framework. I've got every single past email that I've written. So I look in, it's like, what do I need to pace out? What does this need to look like? So I have the bulk of the content kind of in there, and the bulk of the purpose. So then it's all about figuring out what story I'm going to tell. And sometimes it's going to be very similar to the last time I wrote it. Sometimes I change it completely. So I'm trying to think of like the best way that I can give an example. My launch day email, the bulk of it's pretty consistent. I need to go in and make sure that the bonuses are accurate. I need to make sure that the timing is accurate. I need to make sure all of that is like good to go, right? But the story is different every time. And I feel like it's more authentic that way. It feels like me talking. I don't know if it comes across as more authentic, but I just enjoy doing it. And I never want to necessarily do it day of. I'm always like, yeah, I'm going to write them ahead of time this time. But even if I do that, I change it. But like anyone else, I'm a procrastinator, and it's like, okay, let's just shove this in here. I'll do it as I go. It's fine. Everything's fine. But I don't know. It just feels.
Yeah, it feels authentic, but I can see that being a little bit strenuous at times, especially like when you're not necessarily feeling the greatest, right?
When you're not feeling great, or when you have like a million and one other things that you need to focus on. But it's fine, and it allows me to like send them at other times. So it's not like always at 9:04 a.m. or 10:52 or whatever time they go out. They're spread out throughout the day, so I get different people opening and reading them. So so Monday is always launch day. There's usually 48 hours to get the launch day bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say Monday? I said day one. Sorry.
Right.
Launch day, there's always a 48-hour bonus. Then I usually send emails every day during the week. So it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I like to send at least one over the weekend. Sometimes I send one both days. This time I only sent it on Sunday, and it was great. The goal is not always to sell or to bust website copy myths. The goal is sometimes just to tell a story. So there's usually a good blend of, if you believe this, know that these, maybe it's time to shift that belief. These are some misconceptions you might have. Will it work for you?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty salesy. And I don't say salesy, but it's very focused on the course. It's very course focused. I have a whole bunch of different emails that I might send out depending on what's going on. I always, after day one, give people an opportunity to unsubscribe from Whomp related emails, because I don't want them to just unsubscribe from my list if they really like hearing from me. If they don't want to hear from me, that's fine. My feelings aren't hurt. I get a ton of emails too. But I always like to give people an out that's not like a permanent out.
That's smart.
And there was something else that I always do in there, but anyway, so that's really important to me to offer. So let's see, what else are we talking about launch week? So we did all the emails. There was a mid-cart bonus as well, and then there's the final day. The final day, I send 3 emails. One is a more typical Erin email. One is like a, hey, it's, countdown's on, clock's ticking. And then the third one is, words. The third one is like, this is it. I'm not sending you another email on this.
Yeah.
And I don't. The sole exception is that along the way, if I've noticed that people are engaging with content, that they're interested, I'll reach out a couple of times on social. I try to personalize it as much as I can, just because I want people to have the opportunity to do something that they're interested in. I don't want to push people, but as someone told me, they said, Erin, I want you to sell to me. And if I tell you no, that's on me. But if I don't know about it, I don't know about it. And I was like, shit, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's true. What's that expression? Like, people need to hear something like 10 times or whatever for it to actually sink in. Like,
it used to be 7. I think it's 10 to 15 now.
Something like that, yeah. Like, people are afraid a lot of times that they're being too repetitive, that they're talking too much. You're probably not talking enough.
Probably.
Yeah.
I know I don't. And I show up a lot of places. Launch week is intense.
Yeah.
I'm also during this doing social posts. And I say we've pre-scheduled all of the social posts at this point. They all go out. Carrie and I figure out the content, and then she makes it happen. And they're a blend of like, image posts where there's text, and then there's text. Then there's a caption. There's a blend of some video testimonials, some written testimonials, just a whole bunch of different kinds of content. I go live a couple of times on Instagram.
Yeah.
Again, most of my sales efforts during launch window are Instagram, Facebook, and email.
Oh, okay.
I don't do a whole lot of LinkedIn.
Right.
I'll follow up with people after the webinar and be like, hey, let me know if you have questions here, if you want the replay, all the things.
That's smart. Yeah, no, I really like that you follow up. I think that's a missing piece that a lot of people don't do. They just kind of let it blow out into the wind and don't take that extra step.
Oh, and the other thing that I do that I was like, remember, I'm going to think of this, is I give people an opportunity to have a conversation. I open up 10-minute slots in my calendar, and it's like, hey, you want to talk through this? Even though I try to put as much of that into the training as I can, people still have individual questions. They want to know about if it's going to work for them specifically. Hey, I'm doing this. This is my timeline. Is this going to work for me specifically? I have some internet issues, so if I'm slowing down, carry through.
You're okay on my end. Okay. Okay, I think that's really, really clever. So you have like a multifaceted and multi-tiered method of attack, I guess, for launching. And I think that there's a lot of lessons to learn from that. You kind of have your hands in all of the different places to maximize the possible return for the launch, which is brilliant. So in kind of like the TLDR version, what would you say worked and what would you say didn't work for the launch week portion?
Honestly, I think everything worked pretty well. I think launch week, there's only so much you can do at that point. And I think I did it all. I think where could I have been more visible? Could I have gone live more places? Yeah, sure. But there's only 24 hours in a day. And I have kids, I have clients, I have other stuff that has to happen. So maybe one day, next time I do launch, I will get smart and I won't schedule anything that week. But the reality is something always comes up that needs to sneak in, and that's fine. I'm not going to stress about that. I think, probably the biggest area of fallout outside of like prep was the post-launch phase, because there was none. I like to do some emails following up that aren't necessarily about womp to wow, but talking about how it went. And I guess we're in the middle of that right now, like as we speak, because, I wanted to do this last weekend, but I'm still recovering from strep. I don't remember being down this long last time. But it is what it is. So I think that's where, this, I don't want to say it went wrong, but.
Yeah. And for you, what is the big driver? I feel like a lot of people don't do like a post-launch kind of like debrief where they actually share how it went with their audience. What for you is the biggest value in sharing that information with your audience?
So part of it's, it forces me to get into it and do it. It's a little bit of accountability for me. Be like, okay, what went wrong? If I'm telling people, then that means that I have to acknowledge it, which is hard. It's hard to acknowledge some of the things that you don't do well. Almost every other time before this, tech has like failed me completely, at least one day. Like one day my website went down for
oh my gosh, I remember
no reason. And so I threw together a Google sales page, which worked out just fine. Like, because I had the old copy like up, I didn't refresh the one page, so it was like still showing in my browser. So I'm like frantically throwing everything into it.
Oh no.
One time I had massive tagging issues. There's always something. One time my webinar reminder was set for the wrong day or wrong time on LinkedIn, so people couldn't go. There's always like some weird thing.
Right.
And I probably need to hire someone to help me with the tech side of things, just to make sure it's flawless, so it's not an afterthought. Like a lot of the times it is for me. But I'm also like, I can do it. I've done it. I know the moving parts. And I don't have to get it done as early if I'm doing it myself. So a lot of times that's what it boils down to. What was the question?
Yeah, just like basically like telling the main driver behind you sharing all of this information.
Oh,
So
the main driver. So I think part of it's that a lot of people have questions. People have messaged me, oh, hey, when the launch is over, I want to talk to you about this thing.
Mhm.
And we haven't necessarily covered them all verbatim, but like it's kind of a way to be like, hey, we just did a brief debrief. If you're curious to know how things went or what worked, what didn't work, what I actually did, it gives me a tool to push them to, because I want to have conversations with lots of people. But the reality is, I'm at my limit for bandwidth right now. I cannot physically have more conversations. So this gives me a way to help people answer some questions, but it also gives me something to look back on.
Mhm.
And it's good content. People do come to me for funnel support and funnel development sometimes. It's not the main thing that I do, but I enjoy it. And I'm really, okay, so humble brag, I'm really good at it.
You are.
I am not certain, anyway, we won't get into that, but it shows that how I approach things.
Yeah. And one lesson that I think is really important to take away from, especially what you were talking about as far as like the little the tech issues that you've had. Hey, like you still had those tech issues, but nothing died. Like you still ended up having a successful launch. So for people who are listening to this who might be afraid that things will go wrong,
Something will go wrong.
yeah, something will go wrong, but it's okay. Yeah, like it's okay for things to go wrong. Nothing, the world isn't going to end if your tagging screws up, or if the time zone's wrong on something, right? So I just think that's a really
And
important.
it gives you fodder for your next email.
It does. It does. Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that point because I think that's so important for people that are, launch curious, as I like to call it.
There's only so much you can plan for.
Yeah.
And sometimes at world events, a year ago when I launched, my last day was the day that Ukraine was invaded.
Yeah.
And it was heavy. I don't know if you all remember. It was so heavy. And I was like, I can't handle this today. Doors are open till they close. You'll hear from me tomorrow.
I remember that very well. Yeah, that was something. Oh my gosh. It was hard to get anything done around that time. So bless you for being able to go through your launch to go with something like that.
But just the point being, like, it's not always you.
Yeah.
Something on your end. Sometimes there's something like far bigger at play that's just like, whew.
There's always going to be something, whether it's in your control and you centric or something outside.
Yeah, something will go wrong.
But it's
like when I used to be a tour director, or I used to run meetings. When I first started, I was like, so what should I plan for? What are the things that go wrong? Like, you cannot plan for the things that are going to go wrong. And I'm like, but I want to. Like, type A part of me. We had a tornado at one time, and it was like, yep, you can't plan for that. You got to roll with it.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, that is really something. So when we first started out, I wanted to kind of talk about like what is, you mentioned that this is the last time Whomp is going to be done in this format. I'm curious if you know yet. Is there anything that you want to share with us about what that's going to look like?
I can share some vague ideas. It's not set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is I don't know if I launched 6 things last year or if I launched 8. I launched a lot last year.
You did.
In terms of events, in terms of events that had no like upsell, in terms of events that did have an upsell, Whomp to wow. I launched a lot and I enjoy it. I love throwing things together and being like, yeah, let's throw this out here. Let's test this. But I've been really busy with client work, which is good. I like helping people. That's
that's what you do
here. And I really like Whomp to wow. I love it. I believe in it. It's bittersweet to be like, no, I'm not pulling the plug. I'm pulling the plug for right now, basically. I want to revamp the trainings a little bit. Like the bulk of it, I think will be very similar in terms of the what, because I don't think that there's room for that. But I think that there are some other modules that I can offer. And I don't know that everyone's going to want to do them. So I'm figuring out what it's going to look like. I know that it will not be available at $6.97 again for the full thing. For the work that goes into launching it, for the costs associated with advertising, and for the value that it gives, I can't continue to do it at $6.97. It's fantastic. I absolutely love what comes in from it. So I'm not saying that it's not profitable, because it absolutely is, but I want to transform the way I connect with people there. So I foresee it being one of a couple things. I foresee it being either like a 1 week hyper intensive where that's all we do. Like basically we'll be live in a Zoom room.
That's
rain in the morning. We'll check in a couple times throughout the day, but it'll be like a co-working session where people can come and go. So that's one option. And I haven't decided about that. It would be really intense. And then we'd have a check-in like a week later, like maybe like a 1 day hot seat. And maybe we'd do hot seats like at the end of every day, or maybe that's how we kick off the mornings. I don't know. Like I said, it's all completely half-baked. The other thing that it will probably be is a series of individual courses.
That's what I was thinking.
And so I'll probably run them. I don't know, like it might be the same amount of time. It might be 4 months. 1 month we do one course. The next month we do the next one, and so on and so forth. And if you buy them as a bundle, there'll be significant savings.
I love that. Yeah, I love the idea of taking like a larger course and breaking it down into more like bite-sized modules as well. Number one, it's a lot. I just find it more digestible and more sticky to have like one specific outcome for a course. Also, for as far as the course creator, it can potentially be a little bit more profitable if you price a module higher than you would a bundle price. So I think it's really cool. There's a lot of different possibilities and potential ways that you could go about this. And frankly, I'm like really excited to see what you do with it.
And the other thing that's happening is I'm looking at a rebrand for the company as well. So that will allow me to be more than a 2-man team. That will allow me, even if I don't have, and I guess we're not technically a 2-person team. I have a number of people that write for me. I have a number of people that help me do various different components. But in terms of the marketing, the business side of the business, it really is just 2 of us. So I'm looking at how I can transform that. And I'm looking at what brands the courses live under. I don't know yet. It may or may not be Copy Snacks. So, there's a number of things. And with that in mind, that's what leads me to believe that it won't be this fall. I have other priorities for the year. I also want to write a book. Like, hey. So I don't want to put a timeline on it, because I don't want there to be expectations. They will be accepting people into the wait list. But I don't know when it's going to be. So
that's fair.
It might be a long wait.
It could be. So whoever's watching this, if you want to get in on it, you'll have to stay tuned and get on the wait list.
Yeah. And that wait list is right now, it's just erinpennings.com/waitlist if that's something that you want to do. But don't stress too much about it. And if you have questions along the way, reach out to me. At whatever platform you're watching this on has all of my contact information in it. If you have questions on how Grace supports people, you can go to gracefortune.com. And if you have questions on that, just reach out to me if you need an intro to her, and I'll make sure that she has the information.
I would love to hear from anybody who might need my help with launching. But Erin, I think we're just about ready to wind down. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we hop off?
No, I think we've covered a ton of stuff. I think we've covered, we've gone more granular than I thought we would, which is really, really cool. Thanks for doing this with me.
Of course, anytime. Yeah, you know how I am. I like to talk. I like to dig deeper than.
Well, I knew. So the full story for I don't know, the very end is that I was going to write this all out in an email, which I still have my notes. If you're on my list, you're getting the email. And I was like, I think this would be better in a video.
Mhm.
So I hopped on Instagram this morning and I did a live, and it was good. It was good. You can go watch it if you want, but we've definitely covered more here.
Mhm.
And then I was like, oh, I'll go live on LinkedIn tomorrow and we'll do it. Then I'm like, hey, Grace.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can't do tomorrow. And she's like, I could do right now. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Other things I can do right now, but this is good. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you everybody who tuned in. If you have any questions, just reach out.